I mean, they're one-off matches, and and bar one club, they're all in some way or another neutral as well. So um, the only, I mean, yeah, I don't know. For me, the only team I can't see maybe winning it is Buriram, but of the other seven, you can script a story where over three matches of 90 minutes, sure, absolutely, they have the quality. I mean, they're not the favourites. I think you're both right in saying that it will probably come one of the three Saudi clubs, but that's not to say the Japanese clubs, in particular, which are obviously I follow very closely, over here, that they're not incapable of doing it. The Marinos situation is a very interesting one because the recent history of the club was built, as we all know, with a very strong Australian influence and flavour. Firstly, with Ange Postecoglou, and then with Kevin Muscat after that, and built with a real identity and a philosophy and a way of playing. Then they really went back on that at the start of this year. I mean, they they reversed in completely the opposite direction, um, by bringing in someone who was untested at club level, who'd hardly coached. I mean, to be honest, ever at club level, and came as an assistant at England, and obviously there were issues, as we know, there in that setup where players had fallen out with with Steve Holland, and refused to play. With the stories that you read from the British press because of him. So I don't know if there was something there in terms of the man management of it all, but certainly tactically, it was clear from the start that they were trying to and there's parallels we can get on to in a minute with Kawasaki, both historically, certainly in recent times, clubs that like to attack, like to be aggressive, set the tempo, like to score a lot of goals, but both of which had issues defensively. Both on paper made coaching changes. Shigetoshi Hasebe coming in from Fukuoka to Kawasaki, and Holland coming in from the England setup previously to Marinos, with the intention being to keep the attacking intent of the teams, but toughen them up defensively, and that ideally is then the mix to go on and have success. It's worked pretty well at Kawasaki, actually better than I thought it might have, actually. But what happened at Marinos is it's just gone totally off the rails because it all started with the gutting of the squad defensively, which is really weird because that was where it was the strength of the whole thing was supposed to come. I think they got rid of seven first. I mean, they played with the back four, but they got rid of the starters and pretty much the backup at each one of those positions in the off season and hardly replaced them. So I don't know what was going on, and they brought in a Colombian, Quinones looks good, but got injured. They brought in Dan in pre-season, who got injured. The Matsubara, the right back, got injured early on, and they had no cover because they sold the cover, the backup right cover, so they've had to play Ryol Miyaichi, who's had like a decade worth of issues, and he's a flying winger, and so he's been playing right back for them. And then they've had issues at left back, and then the guys that they did have to cover, Taiki Watanabe, and these guys, they've been injured as well. So there's no depth at all, and so they've been forced to play Miichi out of position at right back, and they've been forced, or maybe a little bit by choice, but mostly forced to play like one of these graduate players that have come in, like a young kid, who's never played professional football before, and he's playing. Swami's playing pretty much every game for them as well. So they went with this defensive approach, but they gutted the defense. So it's really odd to start with, and then he totally reeled them in going forward. He's dropped Albert for pretty much all season. He's not really been in the squad. He's rotated Jan Mateus and Anderson more than. I mean, Anderson never got rested, but he's been getting rested. He's been injured as well a little bit the last couple of weeks. I think Jan's got something going on as well. So, so he wanted to play defensively. He's gutted the defense, and then they've not been very good there. And then he's totally unwound the attack. So it was just careening towards this finish, where you could see it ending. And I guess, credit to Marinos that they did it quicker than maybe other clubs would have done. Maybe a lot of clubs would have said, okay, we've set it up this way. We'll let him go to the Champions League and we'll see, because, you may need to set up that way anyway, whether that was part of their thinking in terms of bringing him in because they were already through, or if not as good as through when the appointment was made, and maybe they thought, okay, we need to we need to be tighter in order to have success in the Champions League. And of course, it's not yet confirmed, but it's likely that the winner of this tournament will also get a spot in the next Club World Cup, which is another thing, and they'll almost certainly get a spot in the Intercontinental Cup at the end of the year as well. So it's not just a standalone prize as other tournaments, and we've seen the riches that are on offer at the Club World Cup. It certainly is a windfall for clubs, to be in that tournament as well. So it's an important thing, looking even beyond the Champions League itself. Anyway, so it was a mess, and they made the change. They brought in Patrick Norberg in a temporary capacity, and on the basis of they got fairly well rolled by Reds at the weekend. I don't know. Yeah, temporary may well be. Might not come back from Saudi Arabia, depending on how things go. But they have a big decision and a big choice to make in terms of which direction do they go. Do they admit it was a mistake and just go back to the way that things were? Or do they look to continue down this path? I don't know. But in terms of, do they have, they've been drilled now for 3-4 months in this kind of way to set up to be hard to break down. I don't know that they have the quality necessary. The goalkeeper, Park Il-gu, is getting on a bit, but obviously still a very good goalkeeper. But they have the players, if Anderson's fit, you would assume now that Albert will be back in the frame, and of course Jan is a dangerous player as well. So they've got three very, very dangerous, and I should say as well, Dayatono has come in the offseason. Kawasaki, versatile kind of forward, can play on either side, can play through the middle, can play up front if he needs to as well. He's been actually really good for them this year, probably the best player that they've had. So so they've got creativity and they've got goals in them. Who knows? It may well be enough. You wouldn't think so, but they certainly have goals and goal scorers and creators to damage teams.